My name is Amir. I was born in a city called Kabul. I grew up in a place that was both beautiful and bruised. I lived with my father Baba in a big house that stood proud among many smaller ones. The house was filled with laughter, with the scent of old memories, and with dreams that soared as high as the kites in the clear Afghan sky. Every morning, the light would spill over our home and the sound of life would greet me. I remember my childhood days with a sharp clarity, days of innocence and secret adventures that still haunt my heart. I had a friend named Hassan. He was gentle and kind. Hassan was not just my friend, he was my constant companion. We played together in the narrow streets of Kabul. We ran through dusty alleys, our feet kicking up little clouds of dust in our wake. We climbed poplar trees and laughed under the hot sun. Our laughter was simple and true. I recall the soft sound of his giggles and the sparkle in his eyes as we chased one another around the house and the gardens. Hassan was like a warm breeze on a cold day. He always smiled no matter how tough the world around us became. Our favorite game was kite running. The kites were our magic. They danced in the sky with long, colourful tails. Every kite flight was a promise of freedom. I remember the thrill as I would hold on tightly to the string, watching the kite soar high. The wind would tug and pull, guiding the kite as if it were alive. Hassan and I would race to catch the falling kites after the battle of the strings. It was a game full of hope, a simple game that carried our dreams. I still feel the rush of excitement when I remember how our hearts would pound as we ran, chasing after that bright, fluttering object in the blue sky. There were many days of joy in our small world. We played under the endless blue. We sat by the old river and watched the water flow by, carrying away our worries, if only for a little while. Life seemed simple then. My days were full of the kind of wonder that only a child can hold. The streets of Kabul were our playground. The alleys and the narrow lanes were full of secret spots where we could hide and dream together. Hassan's laughter was the soundtrack of my life. But not every day was full of sunlight. There came a day when the colours of our world started to fade. I was 12 years old when I first felt the bitter sting of betrayal. I remember it clearly. It was a cold, overcast day in the winter of 1975. I crouched behind a crumbling mud wall near a frozen creek. I peered into an empty alley with a heavy heart. I felt a sudden, sharp pain, as if the past had clawed its way out of hiding. That moment was the beginning of a long journey, a journey that would change me forever. I saw the fragile nature of our innocence and the cost of my own choices. Hassan was always there, his eyes kind and his smile unending. He loved me unconditionally. I did not always return that love with equal warmth. In my heart, I longed for approval. I wanted to feel special. I desired the kind of praise that could lift me above the ordinary. I wanted the world to see me as someone important. But in seeking that, I lost sight of what truly mattered. I lost sight of the loyalty of my dearest friend. The day of the kite-flying tournament was one of those days of intense joy and deep regret. I had trained for weeks. Every morning I practiced with determination. I wanted to win. I wanted to bring honor to myself and to my father. The sky was filled with vibrant kites that day. Their colours clashed and mingled, painting a picture of hope and competition. I ran with all my might, chasing a kite that symbolised victory. Hassan was by my side, his face a picture of quiet encouragement. His presence was a balm to my restless spirit. I felt the wind on my face and the thrill of the race. I believed that winning the kite tournament would solve all my problems. I believed it would make me the person I dreamed of becoming. Then came the moment of triumph and of betrayal. I caught the winning kite. The crowd cheered, and the moment was filled with an electric joy. In that instance, I felt invincible. I held that kite like a trophy, as if it could wash away all the past and all the doubts. But even as I basked in that fleeting glory, I made a choice that would haunt me for the rest of my life. I saw Hassan, vulnerable and true, standing there with all his love for me. I did not protect him. I did not speak up when I should have. My silence was loud. It was a betrayal that carved a deep wound in my heart. Days turned to weeks, and the joy of victory began to feel like a heavy burden. Every cheer I heard echoed with the weight of my own regret. I could not escape the memory of that day. I was haunted by the look in Hassan's eyes, a mix of hurt and disbelief. His trust in me was shattered. I tried to bury the guilt under busy days and restless nights, but it kept surfacing. It whispered to me in quiet moments and screamed in the silence of my solitude. I realized that winning a game meant nothing if I had lost the pure, unconditional love of my best friend. The winds of change began to blow through Kabul. War and conflict crept into the corners of our lives. The peaceful alleys where we once played became filled with uncertainty. The sounds of laughter were replaced by the harsh noise of conflict. I saw neighbours leaving their homes and families torn apart by strife. In the midst of this turmoil, I fled my home and found refuge in a distant land called America. There, I tried to build a new life. I learned new words, made new friends, and forged a future far from the memories of Kabul. But the past did not let go so easily. In quiet moments, I could still hear Hassan's laughter. I could still see the bright fluttering kites against the clear sky. I carried the weight of my betrayal like a shadow that followed me everywhere. In America, I became a man with many faces. I wore the mask of success, yet my heart was full of remorse. I tried to drown my regrets in the noise of a busy life. I worked hard, I built a career, and I sought comfort in the promise of a fresh start. But the past is a stubborn friend. It clings to you, whispering reminders of every mistake, every lost moment of loyalty. I felt that every time I closed my eyes, the memory of Hassan and the innocence we once shared came flooding back. I knew I could not escape it. The pain was a part of me, a scar that reminded me of the price of my choices. One day, as I sat alone in my quiet apartment, a call came from an old friend, Rahim Khan. His voice was soft and filled with a gentle urgency that stirred something deep inside me. He spoke of a chance to be good again, to mend what was broken. His words were like a key, turning in a locked door of my heart. Rahim Khan reminded me that there was still a way to seek forgiveness, to restore the bond that I had betrayed. That call was a lifeline. It awakened in me the hope that redemption was possible. I realized that no matter how far I had run, I had to return to where it all began, to the streets of Kabul, to the memories of Hassan, and to the simple, unadorned truth of my childhood. I decided to go back. My journey took me to a land that was both familiar and alien. Kabul had changed. The city bore the marks of war and hardship. Yet, in its heart, there was still a resilience, a stubborn, beautiful spirit that refused to be broken. I walked through the streets where I had once played. I passed by old mud walls and crumbling houses that still whispered the secrets of my youth. The city was scarred, but it still had its soul. I met people who remembered the old days. Their eyes held sorrow and hope at the same time. I felt the weight of every memory, every lost laugh, every missed chance at redemption. In those long, quiet days, I found myself wandering through neighborhoods that had once been my playground. I sat by the banks of a frozen creek and let the cold water wash over my thoughts. I visited the old park where Hassan and I used to fly kites. I remembered the sound of the string slicing through the air, the thrill of the chase, and the moment when I had chosen pride over love. I felt the sting of my own betrayal, and I wept for the friend I had lost. The tears flowed freely, mingling with the memories of laughter and the promise of a new beginning. I began to understand that the journey toward forgiveness is long and painful. Redemption is not given. It is earned. I started to speak with the people of Kabul, sharing my story in simple words. I told them of a boy who once ran with kites, of a friendship so deep it defied the odds, and of a betrayal that left a wound in his soul. I listened to their own stories of loss and hope. I realized that every person carried their own scars. In the midst of their struggles, I saw reflections of my own pain and my own hope. I met elders who spoke softly of better days, and children whose laughter was as bright as the kites we used to fly. Their innocence reminded me that hope could still be found, even in the darkest corners. Every step I took in Kabul was a step toward healing. I visited the old places where Hassan and I once played. I found the crumbling wall near the frozen creek where I had hidden my fears. I touched the rough stones and whispered apologies into the cold air. I could not undo the past, but I could honor it by learning from it. I made a silent promise to myself that I would spend the rest of my days trying to mend the broken pieces of my heart. I vowed to seek forgiveness not only from those I had hurt, but also from the friend whose memory still shone brightly in my mind. I started to work with local communities. I volunteered at schools and orphanages. I taught children the simple joy of kite flying. I wanted them to experience the freedom of the wind, the thrill of a string in hand, and the beauty of a sky painted with hope. In their laughter, I found a kind of redemption. I saw that even as the world around us crumbled under the weight of conflict, the human spirit could still soar. The children did not know of my past. They only knew that a kite flying high was a symbol of joy. I hoped that through these small acts of kindness, I could honor Hassan's memory and remind others that forgiveness was possible. I began to write down my journey. I filled pages with simple, honest words. I wrote of the days when Kabul was my playground, when the sky was a vast canvas for our dreams, and when a single moment of pride could shatter the fragile bond of friendship. I wrote of the pain I had caused and of the long road back to redemption. My words were raw and unfiltered, each sentence a plea for understanding. I wrote in a language that was plain and unadorned, a language that anyone could grasp. I wanted my story to be a mirror in which others could see their own struggles and find the strength to overcome them. I travelled to old neighbourhoods that bore the marks of time and conflict. I sat in the quiet of a dusty courtyard and listened to the voices of those who remembered. They spoke of a time when the land was whole and hearts were unburdened. Their stories were full of both sorrow and a quiet joy, a joy born out of resilience. I learned that forgiveness is not about forgetting. It is about accepting the past with all its pain and beauty and choosing to move forward with hope. Every word they spoke was a lesson. Every tear they shed was a reminder that the path to healing is paved with both loss and love. As the days turned into weeks, I found myself standing at the edge of a vast open field. The sky stretched out in a brilliant display of colour at sunset. In that moment I felt a surge of hope. I held a kite in my hand, an old battered kite that I had saved from the days of my youth. I walked into the field, feeling the soft touch of the grass under my feet. The wind was gentle, carrying with it whispers of memories long past. I let go of the kite string, and the kite soared slowly into the sky. For a moment, I closed my eyes and imagined Hassan's laughter echoing in the wind. I felt the weight of my past lift ever so slightly, replaced by the promise of a new beginning. I returned to a small tea house one chilly morning. The air was filled with the scent of fresh bread and strong tea. I sat with an old man who had once been a kite runner like Hassan. His eyes were tired, yet there was a spark of youthful joy in them. He told me stories of his childhood, of kites that danced in the sun and dreams that once soared high above the rooftops of Kabul. His voice was soft and slow, each word carrying the wisdom of many years. I listened intently as he spoke of love, loss, and the courage it took to forgive. His simple words were like a balm to my wounded soul. I realized then that redemption is not a solitary journey. It is a shared experience, a tapestry woven from the hopes and dreams of many. I continued to walk the streets of Kabul, each step a reminder of the path I had chosen. I visited old markets where merchants called out in loud, cheerful voices, selling spices, fabrics, and trinkets. I saw children chasing each other, their laughter ringing out like a promise of better days. Everywhere I looked, I found reminders of a time when life was simpler and more forgiving. I met families who had lost much but still found a reason to smile. Their strength, born out of hardship, was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. I shared my story with them in simple words, hoping that my mistakes could serve as a lesson and that my journey toward forgiveness might inspire others to seek their own redemption. In quiet moments, I sat alone and wrote. I wrote letters that I never sent, words meant only for my heart. I poured out my regrets and my hopes, each line a step toward healing. I wrote of the day when my innocence was shattered, of the moment when pride had blinded me to the love that had always been there. I wrote of Hassan's gentle smile and the trust he had placed in me. I wrote of the pain of knowing that my silence had cost him so dearly. Each word was a confession of my deepest fears and my greatest mistakes. I hoped that in laying bare my soul, I could finally learn to forgive myself. The journey was long and filled with both sorrow and unexpected joy. I began to see that every scar, every wound, was a story. I learned that even the deepest hurt can lead to growth if we allow ourselves to face it. I came to understand that redemption is not a destination, but a continuous journey, a series of small steps that lead us back to the light. I embraced this truth and began to live it every day. I made a conscious effort to forgive those who had hurt me, and more importantly, to forgive myself. I knew that the past could not be erased, but it could be transformed into a lesson of love, compassion, and the enduring strength of the human heart. I spent many nights under the open sky, watching the stars twinkle above. In the stillness of those moments, I felt the presence of every person who had ever cared for me, including Hassan. I imagined him there beside me, his eyes reflecting the light of 1,000 distant dreams. I whispered apologies into the cool night air, hoping that the wind might carry them to him, wherever he might be. I promised myself that I would honor his memory by living a life of kindness and truth, a life where the mistakes of the past would not define me, but rather guide me toward a better future. Slowly, the city of Kabul began to show signs of healing. The people were cautious but hopeful. I joined community gatherings where stories were shared and hearts were mended through the simple act of listening. I helped organize small kite-flying events for children. Together, we would run in open fields, our kites cutting graceful arcs in the sky. The sound of the string whistling in the wind became a symbol of our shared hope, a reminder that even when the world is broken, beauty can still be found. In those moments of pure joy, I felt the heavy burden on my heart ease ever so slightly. I realized that every moment was precious. Life, with all its pain and beauty, was a series of fleeting instants that we must cherish. I made a vow to myself that I would no longer hide from the past. I would face it, learn from it, and use it as a stepping stone to build a future that honored both my mistakes and my capacity for change. I began to speak in local gatherings, sharing my journey in words that were simple and true. I told the story of a boy who had once run after kites, a boy who had betrayed the one person who had loved him most, and a man who had found the courage to seek forgiveness. My voice trembled with emotion as I recounted every detail, every heart-wrenching moment. I hoped that by speaking my truth, I could help others who felt lost in the shadows of their own regrets. The road to redemption was not without its setbacks. There were days when the pain would return with a vengeance, days when the memories were too sharp and the guilt too heavy to bear. In those moments, I would retreat into silence, feeling the weight of my own sorrow. But I learned that these moments were part of the journey. They were reminders that healing is not a straight line, but a winding path filled with both light and darkness. I held on to the belief that every tear shed was a step toward understanding, and every painful memory was a chance to learn and grow. I also discovered that forgiveness is a gift we must give to ourselves. It is not enough to ask for forgiveness from others. We must also find it within our own hearts. I began to forgive myself for the choices I had made. I forgave myself for the times I had chosen silence over truth, for the moments I had let my pride overshadow my love. Slowly, I felt a lightness return, a sense of peace that I had not known in many years. I understood that true healing comes when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, to admit our faults, and to embrace the possibility of a new beginning. One afternoon, I found myself sitting by a small stream on the outskirts of Kabul. The water flowed gently, carrying with it the stories of 1,000 years. I dipped my fingers into the cool water and felt a surge of clarity. I realized that life is much like that stream, ever moving, ever changing. No matter how many obstacles lie in its path, it finds a way to flow forward. In that moment, I vowed that I would let go of the past. I would no longer allow my mistakes to chain me to a life of regret. I would allow the current of life to carry me forward toward a future filled with hope and love. I began to see beauty in the small moments. The smile of a stranger, the gentle rustle of leaves in the wind, the quiet sound of a child's laughter. All these things reminded me that life, despite its hardships, is a precious gift. I learned that even when the world feels dark, there is always a glimmer of light waiting to be found. I carried that light with me as I continued my journey, determined to transform my pain into a source of strength for myself and others. In time, I met a young boy whose eyes shone with the same innocent wonder I once knew. He reminded me so much of Hassan. I took him under my wing and taught him how to fly a kite. We spent hours running in open fields, the sound of our laughter echoing in the wind. I saw in him the promise of a future free from the mistakes of my past. His joy was infectious, and it filled me with a sense of purpose. I told him stories of the old days, of the simple magic of a kite soaring high in the sky. I hoped that by sharing my journey with him, I could help him grow into a person who valued loyalty, love, and the power of forgiveness above all else. Each day in Kabul was a new lesson in resilience. I met women whose strength shone through even in the midst of sorrow. I met elders who carried the wisdom of generations. I saw children who played in the dusty streets with unbridled joy, their laughter a testament to the human spirit. I listened to their stories and shared mine. In doing so, I discovered that we were all connected by a common thread, a shared desire to rise above our circumstances and to find meaning in our struggles. I began to understand that the true legacy of our lives is not measured by our achievements or our wealth, but by the love we share and the forgiveness we extend. The Kite Runner is not just a story about a boy from Kabul. It is a story about every one of us who has ever loved, lost, and longed for redemption. It is a reminder that no matter how heavy our burdens may seem, there is always a way to let them go and to embrace the beauty of a new day. I spent many long nights writing down every thought, every feeling that surfaced as I journeyed through my past. I filled notebooks with memories of laughter, of the tender moments shared with Hassan, and of the deep regret that had driven me away from the person I once was. I wrote in simple words with short sentences that carried the weight of my soul. I wanted my words to be accessible so that anyone who listened to my story could understand the pain of loss and the joy of redemption. I hoped that my journey would serve as a beacon for those who felt trapped by their own mistakes, a reminder that even the most shattered heart can learn to beat again. The more I wrote, the more I realized that my life was a mosaic of both joy and sorrow. Each piece, each memory was a part of who I had become. I began to see that even my deepest wounds were not marks of shame, but symbols of a journey that had made me stronger. I embraced the truth that my past, with all its bitterness and beauty, was an inseparable part of me. It had shaped my understanding of love and loss, of friendship and forgiveness. And in that understanding, I found the courage to forgive not only others, but also myself. I returned to the places where I had once found solace. I visited the old bazaar where merchants still shouted in friendly tones, selling their goods with pride. I walked along the familiar streets and felt a deep connection to the people of Kabul. Their resilience, their unwavering hope, inspired me to keep moving forward. I learned that every ending is a beginning in disguise. Even as the city bore the scars of conflict, it pulsed with life, with the promise of renewal. One day I stood in the center of a busy square. The sounds of the city, a mix of laughter, conversation, and the distant call to prayer, filled the air. I looked up and saw 100 kites soaring above. Each kite was a burst of color against the vast open sky. I felt the tug of nostalgia and the pull of hope. In that moment, I realized that every kite was a symbol of the dreams we hold dear. They remind us that even when we fall, we can rise again, carried by the winds of our own determination. I spoke softly to a group of children gathered around me. I told them of a time when I was their age, a time of innocent joy and the thrill of chasing kites. I spoke in simple words that were honest and unadorned. I told them that life is full of mistakes, that sometimes we hurt those we love, and that the only way to heal is to face our pain and forgive. Their eyes listened intently, and for a brief moment, I saw in them the hope of a better tomorrow. I promised them that no matter how dark the night, the dawn would always come, bringing with it a new chance to fly high and dream big. I continued to share my story in every small gathering I attended. I visited community centres, schools, and tea houses, speaking about the importance of loyalty, the cost of betrayal, and the power of forgiveness. I talked about the friendship I had lost and about the hope I had found in trying to make amends. I learned that my journey was not just my own. It was part of a larger tapestry of human experience. Everyone carries a secret burden, a hidden regret, a lost dream. And in sharing these stories, we find that we are not alone. The collective wisdom of a people is built on the shared experiences of pain and triumph. Slowly, as I embraced my past, I began to feel a lightness in my heart. The weight of guilt and regret, though still present, became a part of me that I could manage. I learned to see my mistakes as lessons that taught me the value of empathy and compassion. I understood that to truly forgive is to accept that we are all fallible, that we are all capable of both love and error. And in that acceptance, I found the strength to move forward, to rebuild the parts of myself that had been lost to fear and shame. My journey through Kabul, with all its twists and turns, led me to a deeper understanding of life. I came to see that redemption is a slow and continuous process. It is found in the simple act of forgiving, in the gentle gesture of a smile, in the willingness to listen to another's pain. I realized that every day offers a new opportunity to start again, to let go of the past and embrace the promise of a new beginning. The memories of Hassan, the laughter of our childhood, and even the pain of my own mistakes were all threads in the tapestry of my life. They made me who I am, and they guided me toward a future filled with possibility. I spent many months in quiet reflection, writing and talking to anyone who would listen. I revisited the old haunts of my youth, places where the wind still carried the echoes of laughter, where the ground still held the imprints of small bare feet chasing after kites. I learned that forgiveness, while difficult, is the only way to truly heal. I began to accept that my past, with all its sorrow, was a part of me. And by accepting it, I could finally let go of the anger and regret that had held me captive for so long. As I look back on my long journey, I see a life that has been marked by both tremendous loss and unexpected beauty. I see a path that was often steep and rocky, but one that ultimately led me back to the truth of who I am. I see the faces of those who helped me along the way, the elders who shared their wisdom, the children whose laughter rekindled my hope, and the friends who never gave up on me, even when I had given up on myself. I see Hassan in every moment of kindness, in every smile of forgiveness, and in every fluttering kite that dances against the sky. Today, I share my story with you not as a tale of regret, but as a testament to the power of redemption. I speak of a boy who once ran after kites in the streets of Kabul, a boy who made a terrible mistake and carried it like a heavy burden throughout his life. I speak of a man who, through years of hardship and quiet reflection, learned that the path to forgiveness is paved with both pain and hope. I speak of a journey that taught me that love, even when betrayed, can find its way back into the heart if we are brave enough to seek it. My story is long and winding, full of moments both bitter and sweet. It is a story of childhood innocence lost and of the slow, painful process of mending a shattered soul. It is a story that reminds us that every end is the start of something new, and that even the deepest wounds can eventually heal. As I stand before you now, I invite you to look up at the sky and see the kites dancing freely. Let their flight remind you that no matter how heavy your burdens, there is always a way to rise above them. Let their graceful arcs inspire you to seek forgiveness, to embrace your past, and to move forward with an open heart. I promise you this, every day is a new chance. Every morning, when the sun rises over the ancient city of Kabul, it brings with it the hope of a better tomorrow. The kites that fly high in the blue sky are not just symbols of childhood play. They are symbols of resilience, of dreams that refuse to be broken. They remind us that even when life takes away our innocence, it gives us the strength to reclaim it in new and unexpected ways. In sharing my journey, I hope to light a spark in your heart, a spark that reminds you that no matter what mistakes you have made, no matter how deep your regrets may be, there is always a path back to the light. Forgive yourself, as I learned to do, and let your heart soar once more. Cherish the memories of those you have loved and lost, for in those memories lie the seeds of hope. And remember, the simple act of flying a kite can be a reminder that every ending is also a beginning. This is my story. A story of pain, of loss, and ultimately of redemption. I was a boy from Kabul who made choices that broke a friendship and weighed heavily on my soul. I became a man who carried that guilt across oceans and through years of wandering. And finally, I found my way back to the truth that forgiveness is the only way to truly live. And that the beauty of life can only be seen when we allow ourselves to embrace both the light and the dark. Now, as I conclude this lesson, I leave you with a final thought. Look up at the sky, feel the breeze, and let the memory of every soaring kite remind you that you are free. Free to forgive, free to love, and free to begin again. Let the simple joy of a child's laughter, the gentle tug of a kite string, and the warmth of a shared smile guide you on your own journey to redemption. Every day holds the promise of a new start, and every moment is a chance to mend a broken heart. Thank you for listening to my journey. Thank you for allowing my story to become a part of your own. May you find the courage to forgive, the strength to heal, and the joy to fly your own kite high in the endless sky of hope.